Okay, today we're going to make some ruching for your dirndls. Behind me we have 4 examples of dirndls that have ruching along the neckline. You can go any color you want. I'm going to show you 2 different ways today. I'm going to show you one way using double fold bias tape quilt binding. You can buy it in any of your sewing stores. And then I'm going to show you how to make one using a tube of fabric that you make on your own without buying it. So this is cheaper to make, but time consuming. But you can also pick your color exactly, so it's kind of up to you how you want to do it. So let's get started. Alright, I'm going to show you a quick way that you can make some strips. You can use your scissors, you can use a rotary cutter, but here's another way that a friend of mine showed me. I laid the pink that I'm going to use for my strips on top of the black, and I put them face right sides together. And then I measure over here. My strips are going to be 1.5 inches wide, so I cut it at 1.5 inches. And this is called snip and rip. And I did pin it together a little bit along the way just so they won't slide. After you snip, you just go like this. Oops. There we go. And they both rip together straight along the seam line. And you've got your strips right there hooked together already. Now you can do it that way and be pretty quick. You take it to your machine and then very carefully stitch so that you continue to have a straight line and that your finished strip is 1 inch across. That's a fast way to do it. After you get your strip sewn and turned the right way, it looks something like this, kind of wrinkly and bulgy and out of shape. So what you do is you take your time and you iron it and steam it till it's laying down really nice and flat and you have a nice long strip. I said in my first video that I really like my tape measures, my fabric tape measures, and here's one that I've actually taped along the edge of my table. And it's a yard long, and it's really handy for doing things like this ruching. Then I laid it along the edge of my table where my tape measure is, and I pinned off 1 pin on every inch along the way. And I'll show you the next step. There's actually lots of ways you can do this, but the first thing I would tell you is, since the top of my fabric is pink and the bottom is black, I would definitely put pink thread in the top and black on the bobbin, so that when you're working you don't have black thread that shows, because that looks kind of cheesy. You don't want to do something that looks cheesy. Okay, so now that I've got these pins every inch, I'll put this underneath my presser foot and put it right smack in the middle. Okay, and I lower it down, lowered the needle in like this, and then I lift up my foot and I take where I'm holding onto the pin and I scoot that pin up to where it almost touches the needle, and I put the foot down and then I slowly stitch through that little bit of a ruffle, and then I stop like this and lower the needle in, and I lift up the presser foot and I fold this one the opposite way. This time the ruffle goes up, and I go a few stitches in and then I stop, lift up the presser foot, and then put the pin in underneath. Do a few stitches and stop. Then lift up the presser foot and bring that ruffle, the next one, up, so that you're alternating. You're folding one up and then you're folding one down each time. Needle goes in, presser foot comes up, scoot the next ruffle down, and this is one easy way to do it. So you just kind of work, you know, a couple feet at a time. If you want to, you can do a whole bunch of ruffles at one time, or sometimes I do a little bit and then I stop. So you just continue doing this until you've got a good amount of your ruffles done. Now that I've sewn the ruffle down the center, I kind of popped up each side of this ruffle, and I laid it on the black fabric and I laid it on the pink fabric, and I'm trying to decide if I wanted to do the top of the dress pink, would I want the more prominent color on the ruffle to be the pink, or would I want the more prominent color to be the black? And if you wanted the bodice to be black, then you might decide, do I want more prominent black or pink standing up? Before you pin it, it's just laying out flat like this. It kind of pops up just by you sewing it, but you can leave it like that if you want, or you can stitch it. So that's why these pins are here. It's kind of for me to see how it look. Now I don't have to stitch it, but you can come through with a little hand stitching and just kind of stitch each of these open a little bit, and so that they won't kind of close up on you, but they seem to stay open pretty well anyway. But it's up to you, and usually as I'm sewing along, I'll make that decision when I get to that point on the dress. Do I want more black showing or more pink? Now I'm going to show you another way to make a ruffle. I bought this self-mending cutting board, or self-healing. You see it right here, it says self-healing cutting mat. This is really handy when you're going to cut strips to make ruching, to use this. And then I got this see-through, very stiff plastic ruler that you can use your rotary cutter, which is this, to cut your strips. And you pull this back, and you've got an exposed blade, and it is very handy. You just cut your strips. Now I'm going to show you how to do this. This is an example of a ruching that's my sister got in Germany. It was 2 strips of bias tape, and that were sewn one on top of the other, just like I did my ruching there, except for mine was a tube. And then you fold it up in that same manner, and then you sew it straight down the middle with your sewing machine. Now this one happens that they've already stitched each of the little puffs up, and so when you put it on your garment, then you're going to have to stitch that on by hand, because there's no way you can sew that on with a sewing machine. So that might not be quite as fast sewing it on, but it's already made into a very nice ruffle. Now I'm going to show you how to make that ruffle yourself. How do you make a ruffle like that? Well, at Hancock Fabrics, I bought this double fold bias tape that says on it that it's quilt binding. So there's 3 yards in here, and it is 7/8 inch wide, and that means the 7/8 inch is how wide it is when you're finished with it. So I have 2 examples of this. I bought a pink one and I bought a green one, and to make it just like this one I just showed you a minute ago, this blue and red one, you would open up the double fold bias tape, and you see it's pretty wide. It's got 4 sides to it, 1, 2, 3, 4, so there's 3 folds there. So you want to cut this excess off so that this one, so you pick which one of these would be your main fold, and then you cut the excess off so that they just overlap in the center. So do it to your first color, such as pink, and do the same thing to your other color. See how I've kind of snipped away this extra here? And then when it folds it in, it just overlaps in the center. So you take this one color that you've already cut it down in size, and you take the other color like this, you lay them with their seams towards each other, one right on top of the other. And it will take you a little while to do this, and then you would pin them in place and come through with your sewing machine and sew right down the middle. And of course you'd have green thread on the top and pink on the bottom. And after you finish sewing this long strip, then you're going to take your time and you're going to kind of pick the little puffs up, or I shouldn't say puffs, I don't know what you want to call them, and you're going to make the little ruffle by, maybe you want to go through and measure every inch or every 2 inches, and then you're going to gather it very regularly. See how this is very precise? Well, you're going to figure out, and I'm not sure just how far, but you could experiment a little bit after you've done it. So this would take a lot of the work out of cutting strips and whatever, except for the thing is, you only get the colors that are available at your store. Now Hancock fabric, not Hancock fabric, Joann's fabric, it had a lot of color choices. So I could pick yellow, pink, green, and you had all sorts of colors. Some other fabric stores I've been to just had basic colors. So if you want to do something to match specifically like I did over here, this was a pink print. You can make your own, but it's a little more time consuming. Well, I hope this has helped you today to figure out some ways that you can make ruching, and it really adds a nice decorative touch to your dresses. Well, I hope you feel inspired to try to make a dirndl with ruching. Now you can do it the way I used to with scissors, and it was very time consuming. Or you could get a self-healing mat, nice big ruler, and a rotary cutter at Joann Fabrics. I bought these 3. They were $49.99, but I had a 40% coupon that took it down to $29.99. Right when you walk in the door, they have flyers, or they mail them to you if you're on their list, and you can use those coupons. And I would say don't waste the coupons on little things. This is when you should use them on one of these big items. And whether you decide to use the quilt binding or make it from scratch, either way, it's really fun. It is a time-consuming project, but don't wait till September to make your dirndl. That way you won't feel rushed, and this would be something you could do now or maybe January or February, and you'd be all ready for Oktoberfest in September.